So today I wanted to talk to you all about the book series Skeleton Creek. Skeleton Creek is told in a unique way that I will go into later, and it's divided into 4 books. The first 2, Skeleton Creek and Ghost in the Machine, center around an old abandoned dredge in the town of Skeleton Creek, Oregon. The next 2 books, which I happen to have with me, The Crossbones and the Raven, focus more on the group known as the Crossbones that we discover in the first 2 books, and dives much deeper into that group. Now, if I'm going to be perfectly honest, I like these last 2 books more than I like the first 2 books. I almost feel like the first 2 books were written purely so they could set up the events of the last 2 books. But that's not to say that the first 2 books are bad, they most certainly aren't, and let's go ahead and talk about them. This book series follows the adventures of 2 teenagers, Ryan McCrae and Sarah Fincher. In the first 2 books, as I mentioned, Ryan and Sarah decide to explore this old abandoned dredge that's on the outskirts of town. They get the feeling that there's something more to this dredge than originally meets the eye, and when they encounter the ghost of a former worker there, old Joe Bush, they begin to realize that they are in fact right. So the first 2 books are basically just them discovering the secrets of the old dredge and unearthing all kinds of mysteries and answers to some, but not all. The next 2 books take a much more grander approach. While the first 2 take place completely in Skeleton Creek, the next 2 take place in a variety of places. Ryan does stay in Skeleton Creek, but Sarah and her family have moved to Boston by the time this story starts. But Sarah ends up going on a cross-country tour as she goes to a film camp in LA and then eventually back to her home in Boston. And this cross-country tour is not just so she can go to camp, but also so that she can discover secrets about the organization known as the Crossbones. One of the things that I really like about these last 2 books is that Sarah visits actual places that you can visit. Skeleton Creek is an event that didn't actually happen, but in these last 2 books, Sarah visits actual haunted locations that you yourself can visit. Locations like the Spooksville Triangle, or the Winchester House, or any number of famously haunted locations across the country. So Sarah goes to all of these haunted locations, and they delve deeper and deeper into the Crossbones, and it's just fascinating to watch and to read. And as I mentioned, Skeleton Creek is created in a unique way, because it's not just reading. The main books themselves, with the actual writing in it, is Ryan's journal. Because Ryan is a writer, that's how he organizes his thoughts, he writes them down. But Sarah isn't a writer, Sarah is a filmmaker. So aside from the writing, aside from Ryan's journals, we also get Sarah's videos. And in the first 2, that mostly just meant Sarah was sending messages to Ryan because Ryan and Sarah have been told they have to stay away from each other. And in the last 2, it's Sarah showing herself as she finds these objects. And what we also get with these last 2 are actual documentaries that Sarah makes about these different locations. And we also get film reel from the Apostle, who's a character that we heard of in the first 2 books, but we learn much more about in the last 2. This combination of visual and textual media is something that hasn't really been done before. And it adds that touch of realism that makes this series unique. This is not a series that I would recommend reading when it's dark outside. All 4 of these books have a very spooky atmosphere, helped along by the fact that you can actually watch things and not just read them. But it is definitely compelling, and I would definitely advise you check these books out. And that's all for this video, so I will see all of you tomorrow.